Hey up, it's me again. I've got a door to sand. All these doors in this house were all louvered, so they didn't offer any soundproofing or any insulation from the heat or cold. So I've replaced all the centre sections with solid timber. One of them, in fact this door I'm working on, was the timber from my workbench, which was too big to go in the new house, in the new shed. So I recycled all that. And then all the others were just timber. A bloke up the road was selling his house. I bought a lot of wood off him and then he threw a lot out and replaced all those. And I used some stain I bought from him, as his dad used to be a French polisher. But it was really exterior stuff. I didn't know that at the time. It was just in a plain thing. And the odour is really, it's not really settling down. So I'm going to take it all back. Start off with fairly heavy grit. 120, 240, 320, and until I get all the marks out of it, and then give it some decent stain. Okay, so this is the door, and it's reclaimed timber, so you know you're not looking at it being absolutely perfect. You do want some shakes in the wood and some knots and stuff like that. So you know what really matters is that it's structurally sound and it's pretty nice to look at, pretty interesting. So that's our bedroom door, and it's really now quite solid. It weighs an absolute ton, but it does the job. Keeps the sound out from the living room and keeps the heat and the cold as they should be. So I'm going to carry on sanding this and then see if I can get a little bit of stain on it. So I've given this a pretty rough sanding, and it was actually oil I used, not stain. So there are a few patches that are still a little bit oily. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to actually use my scrapers. Now, this is only a really cheap scraper, but it's really quite good because it's just a Stanley blade. So as you can see, you do get a really fine finish with it, which is kind of nice. And then I've got a couple more heavy duty Barco scrapers which are quite good. So I'm going to give this a scraping all over and then see how it feels. Okay, so I'm using this really light scraper here, which is just a very cheap thing with a Stanley blade, and I'm really just feeling for any residue of the oil, because I've gone over it with a fairly coarse grit on the sander, and obviously I will need to finish it a lot finer, because when you put oil on or stain, it'll actually, you'll just see the circular marks that they've made. So say always with these work towards you, and as you can see, it's it is taking a really fine dust off, and that's really, sorry, I'm not sure where this lens is, that's really quite a fine oily residue. So it is doing its job. It's taking off what it needs to take off. This area here is really still quite sticky. Yeah? You can see that kind of residue. So I've gone to a bit more of a heavy duty scraper here. And as you can see, it's taken quite a lot off. It means I'm going to have to go over and stain this again because it's lifted it out, but that's exactly what I'm looking for. These sticky patches here are where the oil is really sat in with the resin of the wood, and it's not basically curing, so it's just not really the odour you want in your house of oil all the time. Okay. Door scraped. Ice cold tin of Coke. And himself, Rory Gallagher, on the iPod. It's almost too perfect. Now, for me, this was the classic Rory Gallagher lineup. Jerry McAvoy on bass, Rod Diath on drums, and Lou Martin on keyboards. This was the era when I first discovered Rory. And I suppose sometimes the first time you hear something, it just immediately takes you back to that place. So saw Rory many times, I think 13 times in all, with different lineups. Always had Jerry McAvoy with him. As far as I'm concerned, you know, the sound of the Rory Gallagher band was as much to do with Jerry McAvoy as it was to do with Rory. If you like your blues rock, you like Guitar Heroes, you like great playing, and you're just looking for absolute passion and fire and commitment, you need to check out Rory Gallagher, because Rory was just the greatest. So here's our bedroom door, scraped, sanded. Now remember, this is all distressed timber, so you want it to look like you have made the effort to sand it, but it doesn't matter if there's the odd little scuff mark and stuff in it here, because staining this will actually bring that out. And you know, you're looking for that kind of rustic aesthetic. So I don't even know what timber this is. The workbench was given to me by my cousin Russell. I don't know how long he had it. I had it for 5 years before we moved to this house. Wouldn't fit in my shed. Used all the timber to make the door. So, you know, it is what it is, as they say. So you know, it's still a little bit sticky from the resin of the door, but wood resin smells absolutely beautiful. And you'd be mistaken for thinking it's another Rory Gallagher track. It's actually Bruce Springsteen playing a mean acoustic, as we all know he can. So I'm going to probably use a mixture of almond and lemon oil now to just bring out the patina on this, and then see if I just need to do any little final filling and sanding, and that should completely take away the odour of the exterior oil that I used by mistake. Okay, and you know, the interior of our house is all brick, and all the doors are slightly different timber, slightly different sizes of timber. So you can see that with the brick walls and the different timber doors, it's really quite a nice feel. It fits in with the aesthetic of the place. Here we go, a mixture of almond oil, lemon oil, and then this is one left over from me touring days, which is a mixture of both, and that should really bring out the grain in this wood. Applying stain and oil to wood, you want to go with the grain, okay, comme ça, but you also want to go across the grain, because if it's a wide grain wood, you really want to work it into every little bit. Okay, so work it with the grain and also across the grain, and then finally with the grain, just to take any visible marks of it running against the grain. Okay, and I've just started this, so you can see, not oiled, not saying, it'll just bring out a bit of the richness and the patina of the wood. Whole door lemon oiled. Now I've just got a little bit of filling to do. You see those little gaps there, and where this filler is white, I'm going to just stain that dark to go in with the door. And then really that's about it. I'm just going to leave it out here for a couple of hours just to give it a couple of coats of drying, and I might go over it with some almond oil. I might just leave it with the lemon oil. It looks quite nice. Smells a hell of a lot better than it did. And there you go, one door rescued from the ineptitude of Jim Keegan. And again, if you like your blues music, you have to check out Robin Ford. This is off his album Supernatural, which unfortunately came out exactly at the same time as Santana's Supernatural, which swept the board at the Grammys, and this is just a far superior album. Best writing he ever did, the playing is exemplary, of course. And the album Talk to Your Daughter changed my life as a blues guitarist. I thought I was actually a good guitarist till I heard that album and realised I was rubbish. Just another quick tip. See this gap here? I've put some Tarzan's grip glue in this. This stuff is seriously nasty. If you get it on yourself, you have to take it off with nail polish remover while it's wet, and if not, it dries dark and sticky, and it only comes off when your skin replaces itself. It's terrible stuff, but it's fantastic at bonding wood. So I've dropped quite a bit in here, And some of the wood dust I'm now going to drop in. Mixing glue and dust is always good for small filler jobs. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm just using some medium brown stain just in the gaps here where I've used filler, and because I've already oiled this, the excess stain that's actually gone over the wood will just buff out. And as you can hear, it's not all blues rock on here, a bit of Nwobum as they call it, bit of Judas Priest. Funnily enough, reminds me, when I was a kid, my old man ran into the local Catholic church and threw a bottle of Domestos at Father McElroy, and he was actually charged with the bleach of the priest. See now, the Tarzan's grip is actually curing. Let's say it always cures slightly proud, and it'll chisel down or sand down, and you can see where I've now filled and put the wood glue in, the glue in the dust. I'm going to add a little bit more to that, I just want it to settle a bit. And it'll dry the same colour as the door. It'll take stain and oil, and it should look pretty good. You may be saying to yourself, you may be saying, why would anybody collect wood dust? Well, they would collect wood dust for such as an occasion as this, so that when you've got a small gap, you can mix the glue and the dust together, and it's the same colour as the wood, and it cures as strong as the wood. So, see, I like this one. New dust, question mark. Don't know what it is, but it'll come in handy for this. I've just liberally gone over with wood dust. Just sprinkled it all over. Gently patted it down, because let's say this glue will actually raise as well, so. And then you just brush it over. Let it dry, brush the excess off, see where you are, see how that's starting to bubble now? Glue's starting to come through, so just pat that down, give a chance for the air to escape and the glue to settle. That might take half an hour because it was actually a gap right through the door. Okay. As you can see, I've actually gone over all the gaps with glue and wood dust. Now, wood dust is an irritant and it can be a carcinogenic, so you really should be wearing a dust mask or working in a well ventilated area, which is what I'm doing. I'm working outside. It's quite a breezy day, so ordinarily I would be wearing a mask. It's just very hard to narrate through a mask. So I'm putting my health on the line just to impart wisdom. Okay, so there's nothing more to do with this door now. Wait for this glue to just keep rising, patting down the dust, brush off the excess, go over it with a bit of steel wool and more oil if necessary. Okay, so I hope you've picked up a few tips about how to fill some gaps and staining and stuff like that, oiling. Okay, I'll just leave you with a picture of me knob.